Welcome to Elevate the Game, where DFW's top leaders drop gems on success, strategy, and legacy, with your hosts George Abreu and Eric Badiwala. Let's get into it.
Today I'm joined by Tom LeBeau, an executive at Sunt Construction with nearly 30 years of experience in transportation and infrastructure, from agency leadership to at-risk construction. Tom has a unique 360-degree view of the industry. He's led massive projects like DART's Silver Line and the Honolulu Skyline. And today he's sharing his secrets on how these complex systems actually get built. Thank you, Tom, for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. If you can just give us a quick snapshot of, what it is you do and kind of how you found yourself in this position.
Well, I'm not sure how much time we have. So, well, first of all, I parlayed a career in the United States military. I spent the first 9 years of my career, went to college, but then joined the U.S. Navy and was in the Navy for about 9 years. And it's really the tech. Yeah, thank you. It was really the technical training that I actually received in the U.S. military, in the Navy, the project management training, those types of things that actually got me into the world of really engineering and construction on the industrial side. And it just so happens in the late 90s, I had the opportunity to join a project in Southern California called the Alameda Corridor Project. At the time, it was the largest public infrastructure project in the U.S. at the time at about $2.5 billion. Wow. And so learned a lot there, and that kind of started my career in the rail and transit business. And so for nearly 30 years, I've been doing that. And from all sides of the table, you mentioned 360 outlook. Yeah, I've spent about the first 13 years of my career as a contractor, and then joined the public sector from there and served at two different public agencies. And then the engineering and consulting world for about 8 years. And just recently, going on 3 years ago now, I decided to go back to being a builder for the rest of my career and finish it out. So
nice. And what is your title there and kind of what do you do there?
So I'm the National Market Director for Transit and Rail project work for Sunt Construction. We are headquartered in Tempe, Arizona, but we have a large corporate, almost secondary headquarters here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, located out in Las Colinas. With that, though, leading national rail and transit projects, it takes me all over the place. Been spending a lot of time in Austin recently. We won in a joint venture the new Austin Light Rail Starter System, which is about a $4 billion project.
Wow.
So we just actually started mobilizing on that recently, and a lot of work going into it just to stand it up right now. For now, it'll go into service sometime late 2033 as a projected plan right now. So we're excited about that. And that's the type of project that I specialize in, really, those complicated transit type systems that include everything. It's called a progressive design build model. So we're responsible for not just the construction, but also the design of the system, and working with the public agency there in Austin, Texas, to bring Austin's first light rail system through downtown and hopefully eventually out to the airport. So
nice. Yeah, I know I also own a construction company, and we love the design build. When we get to design it and also build it, it's great.
Yeah. Control your own destiny. That's those are some of the things in our world and construction that you like to do. So anyway,
absolutely. So a lot of competition in this space. I mean, what would you say sets you apart that has allowed you to continue to grow with your career in the infrastructure sector?
It's interesting. So since you're part of construction too, construction is about how do you evaluate and really manage risk in a lot of ways, but not to say that you don't take risks, because you have to take risks in order to grow. And so for me, I'm not a traditional engineer by education and my background. You've probably seen that. I went to school, studied biblical studies, and like I said, decided I could make more money, support my family better on the construction side of things.
Mhm.
So I stayed with it. But what I did is I was willing to take a risk and go where the project was or where the work was, to be able to further my career. So I took opportunities, and I tell people all the time, we were willing, my wife and I, we've been married now 30, almost 34 years. And in the first 20, I think we moved 10 times to 11 different states.
Wow.
And that was primarily, some of it was the Navy, but then it was really me growing my career. If I had an opportunity to go manage a big project, or a different delivery method like a design build, or a CMGC type contract, I actually went ahead and took those opportunities to better myself within the industry, and actually to learn the industry too. I think that's very important, to really just learn all the different parts of the industry. It's also one of the reasons why that 360-degree view you mentioned, that
Mhm.
I've really focused on trying to take those opportunities where I thought it would give me a better perspective. There's not a lot of people in our industry, whether it be rail and transit or just infrastructure alone, that can bring a 360 view, know what the owner's thinking because you've actually sat in their seat before, know what their challenges are, what their um, hopes and dreams for the project are, but at the same time, what keeps them up at night as well. You know that because you've lived it. Or be the engineering consultant that has been responsible for managing a team to design the whole thing. And then also being the builder, that what it takes to actually then implement those design plans on the ground and make the owner's, vision really come true. And I'm a big believer in servant leadership, which is why I love rail and transit. I
Mhm.
love moving people. I love the fact that we have a chance to really impact people's lives in a positive way by giving them new choices in how they use transportation, whether it be the car or taking a train or even a bus rapid transit or something like that. Just giving people the options, I think, is extremely critically important for our infrastructure, really.
Agreed, agreed. I definitely relate to being able to see both sides, right? I think one of the reasons we've been successful is that I'm also an investor, owner of the property. So,
Hmm.
I see it on the ownership side and I also see it
Yeah,
as on the construction side. And I think when you have that, it works well.
yeah.
When you
Well,
don't, sometimes,
it gives you a completely different perspective, right?
yeah.
Then I work with a lot of large scale contractors across the country, and a lot of these men and women have only been contractors their entire careers, and to be able to sit in a meeting with them and talk through some things and offer up the way the owner's thinking, it's been interesting to see the reaction, because most of them don't think that way. So they look at you and they're like, well, I never thought about that before. That's
Yeah.
because they live in a bit of a different political world than you do, especially in the transit industry. So,
Agreed,
yeah,
agreed.
yeah.
So if someone's listening to us right now and they're trying to figure out how to um, move up in their career and grow their career, what's maybe one tip that you can give them?
Don't be afraid to take a risk in your career and go out on a limb and go where you need to go in order to grow your career. The interesting thing, a little bit about my personal family, um, virtually everybody is in the business. So I have a daughter and a daughter-in-law who work for an engineering company. I've got a son who works for an engineering company. I've got another son who is in senior leadership with one of my competitors, another very large construction company.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so we actually competed on the Austin project. And then I have a son-in-law who actually works for us, and a daughter that works for us at Sun. And my son-in-law recently, he's just starting his career. He's 30 years old. He's been with us now a little over 2 years. He's been in the business probably 4 years. And in this big project in Austin, we won that. And he really wants to grow his career in leadership. He would love to be an executive at some point. And he asked me for my opinion just a couple of days ago. So the very question you're asking me, I was actually asked by my son-in-law. And I
Nice.
told him, I said, if you want to grow your career, your next step is you need to move to Austin. Kind of hard for my wife, who's grandma to their, three, soon to be four boys, to hear that. But for him to grow his career, taking a step and going to a mega project that's $4 billion does not come along multiple times in your career.
Yeah.
But if you set yourself up on one, it takes you to another level in management and leadership, and you get to learn how to build something that is extremely significant in a mega project. So again, what I told them is you need to be willing to take that risk and say, we're going to move to a brand new city. You know, he and my daughter really only know this place, but they're willing to go where it's needed for him to grow his career. So take that risk. Don't be afraid. Even if it's in another state, sometimes, another country, there's opportunities for leadership positions and things like that in Canada and other places. Don't be afraid to evaluate those opportunities and really see if it's going to benefit your career. And if it's what you want and lines up, I say, take the leap of faith and run with it. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense 100%. I mean, so many more opportunities if you're willing to get out there, right? And
yeah,
those moves.
100%.
So what's maybe one of the biggest challenges you've been faced with, and how did you overcome that?
Career wise, culture means a lot to me. Honesty and integrity means a lot to me, which it means probably more than me to me than anything. So I'm a very strong faith-based guy, and so my foundation and my Christian faith actually lends itself to my career and who I am and the integrity that I have. And so with that, it gets challenging when you're working in the public sector, because there are a lot of decisions that are potentially made that are maybe not necessarily the best thing for a given project or design or something like that. So having to manage those obstacles have probably been the most significant thing in my career. Um, but what I've found as I've been able to engage with different boards, most recently the Dallas Area Rapid Transit Board, as I was leading the Silver Line, which is a $2 billion project, and really trying to help them kind of move the project into a much better place than it was. The only way I was able to do that was to have real, honest discussion, conversations, presentations to them, and say, this is hard stuff, but these are the things that we need to do. And with that, you get to build trust. You get to build trust with your clients. You get to build trust with your teams. You get to build, trust with your stakeholders that you're working with and dealing with. And so I've found in my career that it's much easier for you if you just have a high moral sense of integrity and honesty and work in that environment. And to me, it just makes life easier, right? Not that you're not going to face hard stuff, but I've told my staff several times over my career, I've said, look, go into every decision you're going to make and just try to do the right thing. That's it. Try to evaluate the situation, make the right decision, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to make the right call. The one time out of the 10, you might jack it up a little bit. It doesn't turn out half as bad as you think it's going to, because your heart was in the right place and you were trying to do the right thing. So that's, I mean, to me, that's the key to that success. Just go into every decision you make, just trying to do the right thing. So
Yeah, and I like that. Stay true to your values and don't sacrifice that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so sounds like you've had a pretty busy career and a lot of moving
Yeah.
around. A lot of professionals and business owners, they start looking towards the future and how can they create more passive income, making certain investments. Do you have any tips or suggestions on that end?
I'm a big advocate of getting out of debt and staying out of debt. So that would be my biggest recommendation, is try to, not go into debt. But if you are in debt, try to get out of debt as soon as possible. And then try to invest, that income that would be debt into retirement. Do it as early as possible, as well as evaluate your opportunities based upon what kind of opportunities you have to invest and benefit yourself. One of the things I love about Sunt is we're 100% ESOP. We're 4,700 people nationally, and every single person is an employee owner, all the way down to even our craft. So our laborers and our equipment operators, foremen, they're all employee owners. And it's got an ESOP that's really second to none in the industry. And that was a big part of my decision, being able to take part in those types of opportunities. So evaluate those as well. And then again, being out of debt will allow you to invest on your own as well, even outside of your company's retirement.
Yeah.
And so start saving early. So and that's learned by mistakes in the past. So
yes.
anyway,
I agree with that one.
yeah,
I've made those
yeah,
mistakes too.
right.
Okay, so as we're kind of wrapping up the interview at this point, I always like asking if you've got any exciting plans or initiatives in the works for the next 6 to 12 months. Anything that's got
Well,
you really excited?
yeah, I would say yes. The win for us in Austin on this big mega project really puts us on a different playing field with a lot of national contractors when it comes to the transit and rail industry, especially the construction and design and construction industry. So we've got a tremendous opportunity to really grow our presence nationally in a very big way, which is what I was originally hired to do. So there are opportunities up in the Pacific Northwest. We're looking at Southwest in Arizona, still here in the Texas region, and also growing in a major way down in the Southeast, Florida, the Carolinas. And so I'm really excited about those initiatives, being able to help lead Sunt and our transportation business line to grow that. We've got some really huge and aggressive growth goals over the next 10 years. And so the way our transportation group is seen as transit, and the growth of transit rail is a big part of what that looks like over the next 10 years. So I'm excited about what the future holds and our opportunities. I've already got meetings set up in South Florida just because of the win in Austin. People are like, "Will you come visit us?" So
Nice.
next week I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They have a big program, so I get to travel down there and meet with that client, start talking to them about what they're doing. And Charlotte's got another big one, so I'll be there here in the coming weeks, as well as still trying to stand up a $4 billion project in Austin.
Yeah, it's a big project.
Yeah.
I'm originally from South Florida, actually. Make sure you get yourself get yourself some Cuban food when you're out there.
Yeah. So we were fortunate enough to move here in 2005 from Florida. We lived in West Palm. And I managed a big design build project down there. And my company won a big DART, a Green Line expansion. So that's what actually moved us here in 2005. So anyway.
So this last question is more personal. I'm just curious if you know anything about the train that's supposed to connect all the major Texas cities. Is that ever going to happen? Or
the triangle, the Texas high-speed rail.
Yeah.
This is a public podcast, so maybe I should remain silent. No,
Okay.
no, I think there's a lot of challenges with high-speed rail, not just in Texas. There's a lot of challenges with high-speed rail actually in our country. Just in the way it's funded, it is a struggle. I'm a huge advocate and supporter of high-speed rail. My struggle is being the believer that sees the path to getting it done, if that makes sense, from a pure funding standpoint. So I think there's a lot of challenges to the Texas Central. I think it's a great program, a great project. The question is can we find the right mechanism to actually do it? And so there's a lot going on in the North Texas region right now. There's a lot of leadership changes going on in the transportation industry across the board at the North Central Texas Council of Governments, looking at some transportation leadership changes. DART recently is experiencing some leadership changes as well. So they're going to be going through some stuff. But I think there's a real opportunity to set some things up for the future of how we continue to move people as effectively as we can. So,
okay. So I'll take that as a maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Tom, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your insights. If
thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. If somebody's listening and they would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to connect?
You can do it via email is probably the best way. So my email is TMLEBEAU, my last name, at SUNDT, SUNDT.com.
Perfect. I'll make sure we put that in the notes for the podcast.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Elevate the Game. If you're a mover and shaker in DFW with game to share, apply to be a guest at elevatethegamepodcast.com/guest.